It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show! Hey everybody, it's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Schick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey gang.
And Les Webster.
Hello all.
How are you guys doing?
Getting by.
Doing well, thanks. And you?
Oh, I'm here, I guess. So, what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
Well, I decided I've stayed away from my trade pile for too long now. And so I jumped into the trade on top of my trade pile, which happens to be the first volume of the Elric collection.
Nice.
Yeah. This is really interesting stuff. The art, it's oh man, it's very 70s, and it's kind of it's almost like late 60s. I mean, it's kind of psychedelic to an extent, but it does it. It's not over the top psychedelic. It's like just enough to. It's like sort of one guy's take on like the fantasy genre, just in general, from sort of a psychedelic point of view, and I like it. I think it's really cool, and the stories are interesting, to say the least. Lots of it's a lot of fun stuff. I'm really liking it.
Who is the artist on that?
This one is Michael Gilbert and Craig Russell.
Yes, okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, Craig Russell did 2 or 3 of the stories for it. And it is fascinating stuff.
Yeah. In fact, it's probably your fault that I picked it up. It's one I spotted at half price. And I was like, ooh, Les has talked about that before. I'm going to grab it since it's the first volume. So it's all your fault.
Anybody else want a dog pile? Or...
Hey,
no, that's a little
I'm
early
happy to hear that.
Yep. Pretty cool.
All right, Les, how about you?
I read a couple of books this weekend. I did Dynamite's Shadow Year 1, which is kind of not an origin tale, but a lot of background tale, and how he started getting his associates assembled. And also the Batman Dark Knight Master Race series. And this is so good. If you can find it in issues, do so. Or they do have a hardbound edition, which is very easily priced. It's such a good story with Batman fighting Kryptonians from the Kandor bubbled city. It draws a lot of Justice League characters into it, and it's a smooth read. Even the Miller portions of the story, Miller doing the art, fit right in, and it takes you from the first of the first issue and through the Miller section of the first issue, then it starts issue 2. The Miller story is significant also because it ties the other chapters together. This is a good read, and the art is extremely well done and has a Miller look and feel to it, as you found in DK and DK2. I highly recommend finding this one.
Yeah, I seem to remember you were talking pretty well about it when it was coming out or monthly or whenever it was. Monthly-ish. So cool.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to give it a try. I was so disappointed with uh what was it? Strikes Again, Dark Knight Strikes Again. Looking
Oh
at the
yeah, DK2.
DK2.
Yeah.
That first of all, I never finished. I never finished the story because I know there was like a pretty big delay, and then I said, okay. So I didn't want to get into this, but I've been hearing way too many good things about it. So
Well, now it's done, and you can get it all in one fell swoop. So
there you go.
that helps.
Yep. Alrighty. For me, as we've kind of talked before on previous podcasts, I do spend a bit of time on Twitch watching certain streamers and all that. Well, a new game came out within the last couple weeks that has caught my attention. Not so much the gameplay, although the gameplay is pretty good. It's cool, but the look of the video game is awesome. And it's called Cuphead. That's Cuphead. Cuphead. And the look of it is heavily inspired by the cartoons of the late 30s, early 40s, kind of what they kind of called the rubber, kind of the rubber bodies where there's kind of so they kind of bounce around and that kind of thing. There's a little bit of a nightmare. Go ahead.
Like the early Bosco stuff.
Yeah, there's kind of it's kind of freakish. I wouldn't say nightmarish, but I mean it's kind of abstract. But I love the quality, the look of it. It looks great. So that's why I keep watching it because it's just and there's just so much stuff going on. And the whole premise is you're playing Cuphead and he's having to battle a bunch of bosses to repay debt to the devil. So that's basically all you're doing is you're basically going from boss to boss to defeat them, so you can take care of this, so you can get rid of this contract with the devil. So, like I said, it's a great looking game, and it's kind of one of those you can't really look away unless you really need to get away from, the either whether you're watching it on, your phone or desktop or whatever. I suggest checking it out, or taking a look at it and see what you think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I would think from that description that it would be the gameplay would be weird. It would be not. I mean, it's not a normal person running around doing stuff. You're talking about someone who can like squish under the door jamb to go into the next room or whatever.
It's I forgot exactly what they kind of call that mode of game. It's what they call a run and gun. That's what it's called. But it's pretty much you're at one side of the screen and the boss is on the other side, and then you just basically just kind of attack each other. And of course he or she is sending everything they have to kill you, and while you're trying to take them out. So
are we talking side to side, kind of like the Mario boss fights used to be?
In a way.
Okay. I'll have to get on and actually look at it, but just sort of trying to get a mental picture here.
Right.
You're saying that the animation is kind of like the Fleischer look, and it's in a cartoon style?
The look of the characters and that kind of stuff, yeah, it looks like the old. I mean, I swear when I first saw it, I was thinking I was watching some of those old cartoons that they don't play all that often because it's kind of a little abstract and kind of a little freaky and
right. The early days of animation where they were still trying to figure out they were just playing with the medium, really.
Yeah, and then they did things that obviously, I mean, they wouldn't do in the 70s and 80s or 90s. They certainly won't do it today, given kind of the way things are. So it's just a great look. It's definitely something different. You know, when a lot of games, no offense to the developers and that kind of thing, a lot of them look and play a lot alike. So here's something that, while the format is, I mean, pretty much, it's nothing new. The look is, it's an incredible look. So it kind of gives it a little bit of a new, a freshness to it.
Right.
So.
It's definitely not.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely unique.
Cool.
Yeah, I thought so. Alrighty, before we get into this week's topic, figure we take a few moments to thank our sponsor, the fine folks of Things from Another World. We appreciate their support of the fellowship. Currently, they are running just their evergreen deals, which are still pretty awesome, including 40% off select comics, statues, toys, and merchandise, 30% off pre-order manga titles, and 50% off Nick and Dent comics. If those deals appeal to you, well, what you can do is you can go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, and click on our sponsors tab, and you check it out. There's information about Things from Another World and some links that you can click on. They'll send you their website and let them know that we sent you their way. And thank you guys for the support as always. Alrighty, we are in the middle of our John Carpenter, what would you say, retrospective, tribute, whatever.
Yeah, those things.
Those things month. And for this week, we are in the middle of what he has deemed his Apocalypse trilogy, which I still hadn't really found out exactly what all that means, but it's a cool thing. So I'll let it go. So today, that is Prince of Darkness. This film came out in 1987 and has a lot of the same actors that became well known for being in Carpenter films. Obviously, Donald Pleasance, Victor Wong. Obviously, Victor was from Big Trouble in Little China. Donald Pleasance from the original Halloween. The new edition with Jameson Parker, who was really big at the time with Simon and Simon.
Yeah, he played Simon.
Yeah, he played Simon. There you go.
Thanks for narrowing that down.
But the premise of the film is a professor and his class have been invited to investigate this mysterious, it was a cylinder, and a book that had been rewritten hundreds of times in a dead language. But it's a secret that's been kept by the church for hundreds of years. And basically they find out that this is actually the essence of Satan. So while they're investigating this, he starts gaining powers and starts controlling life around everywhere, and things kind of start getting bad after that. To just kind of be frank.
Yeah, things start out weird and get bad from there, pretty much.
There you go. That's the general gist of the plot, more or less. So, who would like to go off with their thoughts of the film?
I will go first with one caveat.
Okay.
I have to ask you guys a question first.
Okay.
Is this your favorite movie?
No. If you're talking Carpenter film, no. It's not my favorite film, period.
I have to agree by a long shot. This is not my favorite.
Okay, good, because my opinion of this is that of the bunch, this is the dog right here. This is the one that I liked the least by far. I almost feel bad. I liked it so little. I had a really hard time following the story. It the best comparison I can come up with is a little off the wall, but I'm going to try it anyway.
Okay.
If you spend any time in gaming circles, you will hear the term metagaming. And this is a term in gaming circles that has a few different meanings, but the one that always stuck for me was when you're metagaming, you as a player are doing something or reacting to information that your character doesn't have. And to me, this movie felt like metagaming the whole way through. Every time the green goo did something, there were no survivors left in the room. But for some reason, all of the people upstairs reacted to it in some way. And it just made no sense to me whatsoever. There was zero continuity. For me, maybe I missed it somewhere along the line. I admit I only watched this movie once. I'd never seen it before a few weeks ago. There was no continuity to this movie at all. It was constantly taking, it wasn't even taking left turns. It was just jumping in weird directions. And I got frustrated by the fact that they had all of this, for 1987, relatively cool equipment that they were using to do all of these sensor readings and all of that shit, and they really never even looked at the equipment. They spent 5 minutes of the movie, and we're talking 40 minutes into the movie. They spend 5 minutes setting all of this stuff up, and then they end up just sort of sitting around it talking to each other. And I was like, why in the hell aren't we looking? One person is typing. The one lady who's translating the book is typing. That's the only time you see any of this equipment being used. Except when it's like being telekinetically picked up and thrown to break that dude's neck or whatever. Every time the green shit does anything, there are no witnesses. But they always seem to know that the green shit's done something without ever looking at the equipment. And I'm just like, really? How? What? It just really took me out of the movie. Several times it took me out of the movie, and I never could get back into it because there was never any point where you could get back into it. Pretty much all you get to see is Wang from Big Trouble in Little China screaming and running around, and then the possessed people just sort of walking around staring at things. There was no point at which I could get back to the story. And I swear Donald Pleasance was off doing his own thing the whole time. He was involved in like 3 conversations with the rest of the characters, and the majority of the movie he's in a room by himself. Mostly talking to himself. Or praying, because he's playing a priest, so I'll give him that. But it's just, yeah.
Okay, Les?
This movie was such a dog, it gave me fleas. This, I have to agree with Mike because this movie made 0 sense.
Yeah, agree.
The title is Prince of Darkness. What I normally equate with Prince of Darkness is a vampire movie. This has nothing to do with the vampire movie. Thank God, because that would have pulled it down even further. I am thankful that they did not make Donald Pleasance a priest that's losing his faith, which would be such an easy thing to do.
That would be such a cliche, wouldn't it?
So cliche. But yuck. This was just horrible. I'm sitting there watching it, and then when I'm finished, I notice that one of the cable channels is playing it this month as part of their group. And I'm thinking, don't tell me that they're going to continue with another Carpenter movie in this set. The one redeeming value I had on the Blu-ray was they showed you about the first 8 minutes in a television cut. And if they had done that with the original movie, I could see where it could have made sense. Where Brian, played by Parker, was kind of in a dream state. So what he was dreaming about was the movie then. And I thought, well, that made more sense than what they had put out to the theaters.
One of those where the trailer works better than the movie itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was one of those Bobby Ewing in the shower type dream states that just, it was bad. I don't know. I know that they won't remake this one. If they do, they have serious trouble.
Oh, if they do,
I fought my way through it. I will say that.
If they do remake this, I hope they can get Egg Chen back to play his role. That was.
There, yeah.
There were a few characters that I liked, and his was one of them. What the hell's his real name? Victor Wong. I like him anyway. I liked him from. I haven't seen him in much other than Big Trouble, but I thought he managed to portray a likable college professor, and that's by itself that's something. But yeah.
Yet he was befuddled the whole time.
Yeah. Well, he was out of his depth, no question.
Yes.
But he did it in a way. Well, okay. Maybe what I'm trying to say is that his was the only character that actually had a character. The rest, everybody else was just sort of wandering around. Nobody else.
Sure.
Including the hero.
Especially the hero. I mean, the professor and Dr. Leahy, who was Peter Jason. Those were the only two likable people in this movie. I mean, maybe the poor girl who ended up being possessed in the end, and that was just, I mean, honestly, all of that was before the possession thing. But yeah, I mean, like, for example, we'll take Brian as an example. The first 10 or 15 minutes of this movie, I seriously thought he was the bad guy. I was like, what is this guy going to end up doing to become the bad guy of this movie? Because it wasn't real clear. I didn't read up on the movie before I watched it. I was like, screw it, I'll just watch it. I was like, how is this guy going to become Satan? Because, I mean, you were talking about the Prince of Darkness thing. I mean, other than a vampire thing, the flip side of that is it's going to be Satan. And we pretty much knew that coming in. But man, this Brian guy is just like a complete stalker on this campus. He's just totally standing in the shadows under trees watching this one girl walk by. And I shit you not, he does this like 4 times in the first 10 minutes of the movie. And he's just sort of got this panicked look on his face every time. Except when he's doing the mooning puppy dog thing. Oh man, it was kind of creepy. I don't know. Maybe and I guess that set a bad tone for me. I don't know, but yeah, it kind of didn't get better from there for me. I mean, like I said, Victor Wong tried to save this movie and failed miserably. Well, now that we've trashed it all to hell and back, what do you think, Tom?
Well, it would be a major feat if we could get Victor Wong back because he died about 16 years ago.
I figured. I kind of thought I remembered hearing that.
Yeah. I will point out, you mentioned this, and then obviously Big Trouble, but he was also in Tremors and The Golden Child, to name a few. But he's been around a little bit. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Definitely the whole stalker thing with Brian. The story didn't make sense, and as you pointed out, they bring in all this equipment and get it set up and start trying to monitor what's going on and all that. But yeah, they spend most of their time just sitting around talking, waiting for enough data to come through so they can start analyzing it. But
well, and wondering where all of the disappeared people have gone.
Yes.
I mean, that's
yes, especially the one with the glasses who they keep mentioning. Yeah, her with glasses. Like, really?
Well, that if I didn't know any better, I'd swear that was intended to be a running joke.
I think it was a running joke. Yeah.
It was not a good one. It didn't really work, or at least it didn't work past about the third time they did it. But yeah, it had to have been intentional. Whether it was supposed to be funny or not, I don't know.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious, and don't call me Shirley.
Right.
The people standing around, they set up all this equipment, mainly oscilloscopes, but they were setting this up, and it made no sense to me. What are we're checking for earth tremors around it?
Right, what are we measuring? There was never any talk about what we're measuring. I mean, they actually did kind of go through a list of the fields of some of the scientists that were there, but that was very early on, and that was before all the equipment was set up. That was we need a this, and we need a this, and we need somebody who can translate whatever language it was, and that was it. And then they spend all this time setting up this equipment, and then not really doing anything with it. Frustrating.
The professor that was whistling, I wanted to strangle the guy. Just shut the hell up.
See, that was Peter Jason. I like that.
Yeah, it's Peter.
But I was not a fond of that. He
only did it like 3 times, and then he died. But spoilers! Whoops.
Yeah.
30-year-old movie again.
Like our audience is going to run out and buy this one.
Not if I have anything to say about it. Jeez, don't. Please don't.
I was trade disappointed. I think if they'd explained just a little bit, it would have been fine. I was like the actors. They didn't explain what they were there for, so I was in the same boat going, I don't know what you're doing either.
Well, and then the whole thing of everybody having the same dream of the figure out at the entrance of that church.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. What was the significance of that? Why were everybody having the same dream? Why was it such a just? I mean, yeah, you don't know who the figure is until the end of the movie, but what was the point of that? Other than the fact that all of a sudden everybody's just it has to do something with this force. But I'm like, why would Satan be just sending everybody a dream saying, hey, there's this some kind of entity right there at the front door?
Yeah, and they did such a terrible job of describing it when they were describing it that even when they said what it was, it didn't make sense. And then I mean, the absolute worst thing they could have done with that is to have it running again at the end of the movie, because it's literally the last scene.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, this makes it have way more significance than it needed to have in the movie. That they saved the quote unquote unedited, clean version of it and showed that at the very end, like it was supposed to mean something. It didn't. Again, spoiler alert. It didn't mean anything. Ay, ay, ay.
Yeah. This one's a little tougher.
Yeah. Well, and for the career that Carpenter had, you have to expect a few woofers.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
and it's okay. It's fine. Honestly, this movie made money, strangely enough.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what? There you go. We don't have to like them all. And that's okay. Nothing else, it gave us a chance to see Alice Cooper for a bit.
There's a homeless
Which was a toss-in.
Oh, entirely,
Well,
but that's all right.
this is not the first nor the last one that something like that is happening.
As toss-ins go, watching him stab somebody to death with a broken bicycle is a pretty good toss-in.
Yeah. At least he did something.
Right. He wasn't just one of the mindless zombie homeless people. He was like apparently the leader or something. He was the one.
Of the mindless zombie people.
Yeah, he was the one in front when the one guy tried to
Well,
escape.
Well, someone's got to lead them. They are mindless.
I thought they were. I thought they were standing around in the film trying to look for the plot.
Oh,
that's true too.
another spoiler alert. They didn't find it.
No.
Yeah.
They could be looking for Spock too. To search for Spock.
Wow. I'm sorry, this movie gave me the shudders, but not the good kind.
Not in the way it was intended.
And this coming from someone who enjoys bad movies.
Oh, I love bad movies, but this was beyond me.
Yeah. Yeah. It was not Carpenter's strongest effort. I was like, are we sure he's directing this? Because these people these actors don't seem like they're being directed. They seem to have been given a very disjointed script and turned loose in a soundstage for a few days, kind of by themselves, except for Donald Pleasance, who was obviously somewhere else on a different stage somewhere, other than like 5 scenes in the whole movie. Yeah, it just didn't. Oh man, there was just no cohesion to it at all.
Well, and the thing about Pleasance, and bless him, I like his work, but watching this when I first saw this, I obviously have seen the other Halloween movies, and I'm thinking this is basically Loomis except for it's religious because he's a priest. He's talking about an evil force and this that and the other. It's kind of more or less the same thing.
But Loomis was never this scared. I mean, he had a healthy fear of Michael.
Yeah.
But, I mean, this guy was fucking cowering in a corner for the last 10 minutes of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, literally cowering in a corner. This was not Loomis. This was a horrible parody of Loomis at best.
Yeah, but you can see where I'm coming from. It's kind of the same.
Right.
Kind of in the same thing.
He's almost tangential to the plot, and I use that term very loosely. Plot, that is, not tangential. I mean, with the Halloween movies, he was there but not really part of the action. And with this, I mean, it's very much the same in that regard. I agree with you. He wasn't the guy fighting off Michael Myers.
Right.
And in this case, he was not the guy fighting off Satan or the green goo or however you want to look at it. Yeah, and that was what I kind of don't want to talk about the ending, but it was anticlimactic to say the least. I thought it was a lame way to end it.
We talking about the dream or how we deal with the Prince of Darkness?
We're talking about the mirror thing, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was disappointing.
Yeah.
To say the least. And
Okay. Go ahead.
But no, I was just going to say I wasn't going to say exactly what happened, but I mean, granted, it was. Yeah, I'll just say it was very disappointing. That's not how I would like for it to end, but oh well.
Yeah, I mean, I find it a little interesting that he calls this part of his Apocalypse trilogy because of the. Well, I mean, with the other two in the trilogy, the endings are very much no-win scenarios. It's almost as if for some reason in this one he tried to pull off a victory at the end, and yeah, it was very unsatisfying. It was a bad idea.
Yeah, he tried to pull off a victory, but it was not a. It was
a victory
not one where. Yeah, there was victory. No, go ahead. What were you
I was
going to
say it was a victory without it was a victory without a happy ending.
Right, that's it. I'll go with that.
Yeah, it was intended to be a win without necessarily everybody winning, and to go any further than that would be major spoiler territory. And again, I don't recommend anybody watch this movie, but if you want to, if you're a completionist and want to watch one more Carpenter movie, go for it. But
Yeah.
If I may, let's take it another tack.
Okay.
Did you get anything positive out of this movie?
Victor Wong? I guess that's not good enough. All right.
I mean, yeah, I thought he did. Like I said, I thought he did a good job with kind of the professor who was in over his head. His character, I think, like I said, was like the only character with any depth, and that was almost incidental. That didn't seem to be a function of the script. I'm having a hard time finding something redeeming about this movie. I really am. Like I said, I came into this almost feeling bad that I liked it so little, because I thought maybe it was me. Maybe I watched it wrong. Maybe I came at it with the wrong attitude. I don't know, but I feel a little better that you guys agree with me that it was a dog.
Yeah, it's not one of Carpenter's stronger efforts. I'll say that.
Why? Do you have something less that makes it, or are you just fishing for anything to not have wasted that much of your life?
Throw me a line, please, please.
I don't know that if I have a thought of redeeming value in it either. It got so convoluted with the girl that ended up bumping her elbow and getting the mark, and what happened to her.
The way they played that out was, it took way too long. They focused way too much camera time on her. That was where they spent their special effects budget.
Probably so.
I mean, that and the glowing in the jar. But I agree. I just don't think that was designed well. I mean, I thought making her. I mean, they went a long way to make her look pregnant for a good bit of that, but she never had a baby. She just, I mean, eventually the bump just went away and she was Satan. Which, what?
Yeah.
What?
You end up scratching your head.
What was the point of that? I mean, it was, I would almost go so far as to say that was sexist up to that point. I mean, why do we bother making her look pregnant other than she's female? If you're not even going to pull a baby out of her. I didn't get it. One of many things in the movie that I didn't get.
I was just thinking, did you get a thought about the fact that the student that was trapped in the room with the three women outside was kind of like the three women at Jonathan Harkness in Dracula?
But I did not get that at the time when I was watching it. I see the parallel now that you're making it for me. But
Yeah.
no, I didn't draw that parallel at the time. I see it.
Well, I can understand if you don't make that comparison, because maybe I'm just grabbing at straws to give it some validity, but boy.
I didn't see any other parallels to Dracula, so I don't know what the point would have been. That's the problem. Then again, what was the point of any of it?
I sat down, I wanted to like this movie, but I just can't say that it won me over.
See, and I came into it making the connection between Prince of Darkness and Satan and thinking, man, this is going to have to be good to win me over, because it's not like we haven't seen this concept 500 million times. And boy, it wasn't good. It didn't even come close to making me interested. I mean, my take on this is it was a bad idea from beginning to end, and no amount of acting performance is going to save it, which is good because there was almost no amount of acting performance. Like I said, Stalker Boy falls in love, and then his lady doesn't make it. We'll just put it that way. I mean, where's the? Yeah. Just wow. Just wow. I was really, really disappointed. I expected better from Carpenter. I really did.
He was co-writer, right?
What I see has him as the writer. It doesn't list anybody else. I don't know. Let me see. There's an IMDb page for this.
Okay.
If there are other writers credited. No, he's the only writing credit, and he wrote it under a pseudonym. In all reality.
What does that tell you?
And then directed it. Why? I mean, what the hell? I would love to ask him where all of this came from. What was the purpose here? Because it's not visibly obvious that there was a purpose here.
Unfortunately, I will agree to that.
Okay, well, let me ask you this then. We've mentioned it a couple of times, this Apocalypse trilogy. I haven't really seen anything about this. Do you think this has come about just? Where do you think this came from? Just grouping these three and then saying it's this type of this kind of trilogy.
Well, I wouldn't have done it, honestly. I don't see the purpose, really.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of his movies don't end well for the hero. Why these three are special in that regard, I don't quite understand.
Right.
I'm making light of it, but it seems like he had bad tacos at lunch and ended up with this.
Wow.
It just, It had no rhyme or reason to me. It had no point as to where he was going with it or what he planned to do with it when he got it there. And to me, it suffered because of that. I don't think he did it because he needed money. This, like you said, made cash at the theaters, but it just suffered big time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and this movie actually won an award. I mean, it won an award. Admittedly, it won an award from a film festival I've never heard of, but it won an award. And oh, let's go back to one of my other themes for these movies.
Okay.
Let's talk about music.
It
It didn't help. I mean, and it's not a big shock. I'm not a fan of the 80s, straight out of the 80s electronica that Carpenter is best known for and clearly loves because he puts it in all his movies. He scored this movie, and I'm only a couple of weeks out of watching it, and I don't remember the music at all. So clearly it wasn't. I mean, okay, they got Alice Cooper to do a song. To be honest, I don't even remember that well. Yeah, it's so. It didn't. I mean, and that's one of the things. It was nominated for an award for the music, and I'm like, clearly this was back in the 80s because I don't see it. I don't see it.
To me, the music sounded like he was making a stab at Halloween. Try to get that feeling, that music going again.
Like trying to relive the past glory, or like making fun of?
Relive it. It gave me the impression he was trying to relive it. And it failed horribly.
Yeah, I just don't remember scenes that had that much music in them. I mean, most of it was quiet. There was a little bit, but I don't know. It just didn't. Yeah, it certainly wasn't memorable.
No, not by a long shot.
Well, any final thoughts before we move on? Because I think we pretty much made our feelings felt about this.
Yeah, from this movie, I think moving on is the best thing we can do.
I'll have to agree there.
Okay. Alrighty. On that note, we will take a quick break and be back with our weekly picks. And we're back, and it's time for our weekly picks, and leading off is Mike.
I am leading off, and I'm leading off with a dark horse title. This is Sherlock, Frankenstein, and the Legion of Evil, #1. Now, I picked this one for two reasons. One, that's an awesome title by itself. And two, this particular title is a spin-off from the Black Hammer series. If you're not familiar with the Black Hammer series, go check it out because there's some really cool. It's actually a superhero book. A group of superheroes appears to be anyway trapped in a small town where nothing's happening. And they've been there for like 10 years, and this is the result of a battle they had where basically the leader of the group, the Black Hammer, was apparently killed. And it's this very interesting and complicated story. And this Sherlock, Frankenstein, and the Legion of Evil is a spin-off series which is addressing some of the villains that the team faced in the past. So that alone will make it fun, because the daughter of the Black Hammer was actually a reporter back home in Spiral City. That's the name of it. Almost forgot there for a second. And so, yeah, I expect this to be a whole lot of fun, because the Black Hammer series, I mean, I'm not big on superhero stuff, but that's I really like the Black Hammer books. So this is definitely worth checking out.
Very cool.
I'm with you there. Black Hammer is a fun read, and this, to me, is going to be a good look into the whole world.
Right. It's definitely going to add some layers to the world, which will be just always a good thing.
Okay. Les, I believe you are next.
Let's see. I'm going to look at Maestro's #1, coming to you from Image. You'll find us to do a lot of #1s. We want to get you folks into some of the series that are going to be coming up. In this one, there's a character called the Maestro, and he and his entire family have been murdered. His son, who is banished on Earth, will inherit the Wizard King's throne, but of course he has enemies everywhere. So I can see this moving along pretty good at a fairly quick pace. The creator is Steve Scroce, who did We Stand on Guard, the Canadian comic book series. Well, the comic book series about Canadians.
Yeah, I remember that one.
And it was only like 4 to 6 issues, but it was a really good read itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a feeling that this is going to give you a look and feel of DC's Sandman, or Vertigo's Sandman. I think it's going to have that touch to it just by looking at the cover of issue 1. And if they do continue this way, it should be pretty fabulous.
Cool. Sounds interesting.
Yeah, this was on my list of picks, so I'm glad you picked it. It does sound interesting. The cover looks great. The interiors is just as good, and it's going to be a nice visual, and the premise sounds interesting. So it should be another winner for Image. I am up next, and my first choice, I'm going with a new book from Line Forge Comics, and it's called Wrapped Up. And this is an all-ages tale about a young boy named Milo who's actually a mummy, and his parents are mummies, and he has all these crazy little adventures with like babysitters or witches, and has to deal with talking dogs and love crazed gorillas, and so it's just a lot of crazy stuff. It's written by Dave Schecht. I'm sorry, I pronounced it wrong. Scheidt, who is a writer for Adventure Time. He wrote from Adventure Time, Munchkin, and Troll comics. So he's kind of been in that vein. So of all ages tales that are kind of on the wild side. So it sounds like it could be a pretty fun book, and of course it's coming out at the right time of year. So kind of curious.
Yep. Sounds like it would be fun to see how dark you can take it.
Yeah.
I mean, keeping it all ages, of course. But.
Right. Well, I mean, it can be done. There's several, as we've talked about before, there's several kind of darker, scary books that are all ages that it does a great job of balancing that tight wire. Tight wire.
Yes, good
All right.
choice.
Alrighty, Mikey, you're up again.
Okie dokie. My second pick is an Image title. It is Kill the Minotaur, number 5. This is a fun little retelling of the labyrinth story from Greek mythology. So that by itself is obviously a cool story, or it wouldn't have survived 3,000 years.
Right.
There's actually a group of people that get dumped into the labyrinth to feed the monster, and so there's a group dynamic going on there, which is, of course, adds to the drama. So makes it interesting, and it keeps it kind of fresh. It keeps it so that it's not just one guy hunting down a monster and trying to kill it. It's more interesting than that. It's turned it into a pretty nice story.
Cool. Yeah, it's been an interesting ride so far.
Yep.
Alrighty, Les.
My second pick from Dynamite Entertainment is John Wick number 1, written by Greg Pak, art by Giovanni Valletta. This is based on the action adventure movies of John Wick, and I've got a feeling they're going to be able to just pull something together to give you a comic book. To me, those were two of the most intense movies of the past 5 years. And if they can pull a lot of that off in the comic, it's going to go well. It's going to go far. And this kind of takes it up when Wick was much younger. And he ends up finding the company of assassins and tries to learn their style. So they're doing a John Wick first movie, and that means that they've got a lot of ground that they can cover, to the point where in the movie he is out of the business, he has lost his wife, and all that. So with the possibilities being there, I've got a feeling that this will be much better than just a limited series. I think this one will go on for 2 years at least, and still not be at the point where the first movie starts.
Yep.
Cool.
An early prequel.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
And if any movie is just primed to be turned into a comic book, I'd say John Wick is the one. Because, dang, it's going to be a very violent comic book.
Right.
In case you're not familiar with the whole John Wick thing. I don't know of anybody who's not, but it's possible, I guess. But yeah, it's going to be good.
Alrighty. I am up next, and for my second choice, I am picking a collection from IDW Publishing, and it's called Archie, a celebration of America's favorite teenagers. And this is chronicling the history of the characters, and it's supposed to have some behind-the-scenes art and stories from even with Dan DiCarlo, Bob Montana, Harry Lucy, Dan Parent. Of course, Dan Parent's more recent years, and even John Goldwater, who is the creator of Archie in the entire line. So this sounds like this could be a really interesting kind of read. Obviously, this is going to be more of a, not so much here's the best stories of the characters, that kind of thing, but more of a kind of an actual account of what has gone on the last 70, I think they've been around 75 years, so it should be an interesting read.
Oh yeah, I like me some history books, so
Mm-hmm.
it's always fun.
Yep. Alrighty, honorable mentions, Mikey.
Alrighty, my honorable mention this week is an image title, and we haven't brought up curse words in a while, so here's curse words number 9. We are, I think, getting near the end of the second arc here, and if you're not familiar, which would be weird since we've talked about it before, a wizard named Wizord has crossed over into our world, and with the intent of scouting for his master back on his own world so that they can take over this world. Well, he gets here and realizes, hey, I like it here. I don't want this world to get destroyed. So I'm going to stop my former boss from taking over and destroying this world. And so then there begins a string of battles between the other minions of this boss and Wizard to protect this world, and it's I don't know. I feel like I'm not describing it well, but it's a lot of fun. Wizard is very much the evil wizard stereotype guy in the savior of the world role, and so it's a little disconnected in that sense, but in a really funny way. It really works. And I'm sure Charles Soule is way better at describing it than I am because, well, it's his story. But he and Ryan Brown are working together on this, and it's getting to be a really well loved book. So it's definitely one to check out.
I would agree that it's well loved. I mentioned it on a pre-recording that I've seen cosplayers now. There's which is cool. So yeah, it's been an interesting book so far.
Yeah, you say you see, and I'm not taking anything away from this, but you say you've seen cosplayers. But I remember just this weekend, I think you said New York Comic Con was going on.
Yeah.
Somebody, one of the comic folks, posted a picture, and it was a cosplayer who had dressed up as the convention center. So
okay, that's cool.
It actually was pretty cool.
So was he giving directions?
No, he looked like the building. Had like just this frame of the building. He was walking. I don't know if it was he or she. It was hard to tell through the building, but yeah, it was really pretty funny. That particular tweet was getting a lot of mileage. Wish I could remember who it was that did it. Anyway,
well, Mike, as far as your choice goes, I want to say I'd like to see people get on board with this because it is a good title. It's a pretty phenomenal read. I think they've got it plotted very well. And it does have its humor points as well as its darkness.
Yep. And Margaret's pretty awesome. So there you go.
Yep.
Alrighty, Les.
For my special pick, DC is coming out with a reprint of the 3-issue tales. This is called JLA, The Nail and Another Nail. This is by Alan Davis, art and writing. They ran the 2 series. This is a collection of it all. But the first series I thought was a great concept.
Oh, yeah.
What if Jonathan and Martha Kent are riding along and they get a flat tire because of a nail? They do not find Kal-El. They don't have Clark with them. So it all becomes very different as far as a world without Superman. So in this, you have the other heroes, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Green Lantern, and others that have to not only fight the villains, but they've got to fight the public, and also distrust when they try to protect the world. So it was a great pair of 3-issue series, and now it's all collected into one volume. So if you can dig it up either way, I would recommend going ahead and getting this hardcover, because it is reasonably priced and it's well worth the time.
Yeah, I remember reading The Nail and totally enjoying that. I don't remember another Nail. I'm sure I read it, but I'm just not remembering, because if I'm not mistaken, Kal-El was raised by the Amish. Isn't that right? Or Quakers?
Yes, that is right.
So it was kind of interesting. But yeah, it was a great read. And of course, I love Alan Davis's art, so.
That does sound like fun.
Yep. And for my honorable mention, I am going with Dark Horse Comics. This is another collection. It's called EC Archives Aces High, and this is a hardcover. And this collects their war, one of the war titles, obviously called Aces High. And it also includes a Never Before 3D story, a World War I fighter. So I love the fact that Dark Horse has been going back and doing stuff like this, and IDW does it as well, with especially with Yo Books help to kind of keep these stories alive and in front of readers who were not around when the books originally came out. So obviously there's not a lot of war tales coming out nowadays. It's not as popular as it was back in the day. So, but I'm kind of excited about this.
Yep. Yet again, another glimpse of history.
Yep. I agree. Yeah.
Alrighty. Any special mentions this week?
Not me.
Nothing here.
I have one. I kind of want to point out. Obviously, this will drop Sunday, October 15th. October 19th is a special date for us. Does that date ring a bell to you, Les?
October 19th.
Yes.
No, offhand, I'm sorry.
Okay. How about you, Mikey?
I have a couple of ideas. Where are you going with this?
It's not where you think I'm going.
No, I didn't figure it was, actually, but okay.
Okay. October 19th, 2010. Les and I did our first live webcast.
Oh, dear Lord. That's been a while.
It's been a while. This was back during our Ustream days, when we were on Ustream. I came, this note kind of came across my eyes in the last few days, and I was like, oh, wow. So I kind of miss those days in a way, but, I'm kind of glad. Because it was kind of challenging doing a live streaming show, especially trying to. But it was fun getting the instant feedback from people who were watching this and reading responses in the chat room.
Yeah, I agree.
So I kind of missed that, but not sure I want to go back to that anytime soon. But I figured I would take a couple of moments to kind of look fondly back at those days. And, man, if we had not stopped doing the show, we would say we've been doing this for 7 years. And that would be crazy to think about. Hey, we were streaming when no one else was doing it. At the time, basically, you streamed, what you'd see would be just people coming on and just kind of just talking, more or less what we were doing. But now streaming, everybody streams. You stream gaming, as we've talked before.
Oh yeah, Twitch didn't exist 6-7 years ago.
Right.
I mean, that's all new since then.
Obviously, the services like Netflix and Hulu and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, that's just come within the last few years. So I like to think that we were kind of on the forefront there for a while, but hey, well. But I guess not. Who knows? It was fun. That's all I can say is we had fun doing it, and I'm sure there's listeners out there who remember those days, and hopefully they enjoyed them as well as we did. So I just figured I should make a mention of that.
Cool.
I'm glad you did, because we do have some fond memories of that, but to me, this is a lot easier.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Except for Mike's part.
Yeah, I imagine it's still easier, even with my part.
I wish we still had all the shows. I know some of them I was fortunate enough to be able to get them moved over to our YouTube channel. So if y'all ever have a chance, go check out some of those early days. And
yeah, and eventually we switched over to, we were using Google Hangouts.
Chat. Yeah, our Hangout, yeah.
And so those are definitely on YouTube still.
Right. Yeah.
We did that for, I guess, about a year.
Yeah, that's when we got you involved.
Yeah.
Definitely check those out too. If you like our podcast, definitely go to our YouTube and check out some of our streaming shows and let us know what you think about those.
We have a link to the YouTube page in the show notes every week.
Yep. Alrighty. With that, we'll get into our regular shout-outs. First off, thanks to Manny the Martyr for the awesome music that is supplied for our show. It's very much appreciated. We highly suggest you go check out their page. There'll be a link in the show notes, and obviously if you go to the website and go to the podcast page, there you can see their logo there. Just click on that. That'll get you there and check it out. Also want to thank the fine folks that constitute the Pottern family on Twitter for spreading the word of the fellowship. Unfortunately, I've been kind of falling down on the job recently, and I need to get back into that, but they've been kind enough to retweet our links to our shows, and we were returning kind. Like I said, I've been falling down, so sorry guys. If you're searching for a podcast on any subject you can think of, just go to Twitter. Don't necessarily have an account. Do a search, #PotterFamily, one whole word, and knock yourself out. Sure, you won't regret the decision.
Hundreds of shows. Various titles, various topics.
Yep. And then finally, you, dear listener, thank you for listening to today's episode, and hopefully you've checked out some of our other episodes. It's always appreciated. And we always value your feedback. Please contact us if you have any kind of questions, comments, suggestions, whatever. We're always open. There are several ways you can do that. Go to our website and click on the About Us tab. And then once again, the website is www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. Click on our About Us page, and there is a form that you can fill out there. Or you can just send us an email. Email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. Or you can contact us through social media. We're on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks. It's all one word. Or on Twitter, @FellowshipGeeks. Feel free to follow us there. You can also follow Mikey and myself on Twitter. Mike is @MikeyGeek, and I'm at TomTCGeek. And wherever you listen to our show or download our show, whether it's through iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, the aforementioned YouTube, and now, we didn't realize this, but we are on iHeartRadio.
Woo!
So wherever you listen to our show, please rate us. And if you have an extra couple minutes, a review would be awesome. Did I miss anything?
I think you got it.
Okay. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
Well, just thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for inviting us in to your cranium. Hopefully we'll be able to return.
Okay. Thank you very much for listening, guys. We always appreciate and love you for your support. And until next time, read more comics and support your local stores.
We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,